Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel for another video between myself and Joe. Today I've been recording some 15th Doctor Season 1 videos, which you'll probably have already seen, so go and check this out if you haven't already. But in this video we're winding the clock further back to David Tennant, his first incarnation of the Doctor, the 10th Doctor, and his costume, specifically the ties that he wore. Tennant wore two suits as the 10th Doctor, the brown pinstripe suits, the blue pinstripe suits, both of which Joe has fantastic replicas of. You can see the brown one here, plus the coats as well, which is a lot bigger than I expected it to be. You don't quite realise until you see it in person. It's ginormous, and
it's like a massive blanket.
It's very, very soft, very fluffy and furry. You're saying it was made from
faux suede
sofa fabric.
So it was like
right?
the original was a sofa fabric that Louise Page acquired. I don't think it's ever been confirmed where it was from, because I think she kept it very close to her chest where that came from. But it's a very lovely fabric, and obviously this coat's made once again by Steve Briggs Tailoring.
Of course. The
suit is the best on the market, being the Magnolia Clovers, and then we'll go through the various ties and details. Yeah,
that's what we're gonna do, aren't we? Kind of go through them. The brown suit ones first, then the blue suit ones. As you can see, there are quite a few to get through, so let's get straight into it with the first tie that Tennant wore. This is the Christmas Invasion, right at the end when he gets his costume.
So it was worn for probably the grand total of less than 5 minutes during Christmas Invasion. This was paired with a linen shirt. It was originally a larvin or a lanvin, and it's just a basic brown tie with a brown floral pattern. Fun fact, the original 10th Doctor costume was mainly going to aim for layered looks with the suit to give it that more student fit vibe. However, obviously they paired this tie with it after they picked it out of the costume cupboard, and then all the others followed suit gradually. This tie, even though it appears very shortly, it does appear again later on for just one scene in Army of Ghosts, when Billy and David are running down a street right at the beginning, when Billy's talking, oh, I was 19 years old and I ran off with this man from space kind of spiel. It's kind of a nice tie, but I understand why they didn't use it again, because it's not got any blue in it, as it doesn't really
it's kind of the plainest one, I suppose,
out of them.
Have all these.
Then moving on to the next one that was featured in newer. This was originally a Daniel Hector, has sort of a diamond pattern to it.
It's kind of brown, isn't it, with sort of blue highlights and bits. The one that the action figures are based on, I'm right in saying it?
Yeah, so Louise Page referred to this as the doll tie. So the 12-inch figure, the original 5-inch figure, was based off this in, I think, the 3.75. Weirdly, character options painted the tie red, but it's actually brown with like little blue dots on it to represent the pattern.
And all the, well, most of the subsequent 10th Doctor figures then had that tie, didn't they? Even though this was only worn, what, for a couple of stories, or was it just New Earth?
It's a really regularly worn one.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, it was worn in New Earth. I think the next time that tie crops up is Rise of the Cybermen.
Oh, right, so before he changes into the
tuxedo.
The tuxedo, yeah.
There's a few more times, and then
it comes back in End of Time, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, and it also crops up in series 3 and 4 occasionally.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice tie. I get why they picked a pair, because it's got some light blue contrast in it that would go with the pinstripes of the suit. Another very short-lived tie, like the Christmas Invasion tie, next is School Reunion. This originally was a YSL, a Saint Laurent tie. It's got like a sort of square weave with some polka dots on it. Once again, it's 2 block colours of brown. Probably the reason they used it once, but Louise Page did say that part of the reason she used it was because it was such a subdued tie compared to quite the garish pattern some of the teachers were wearing in the episode.
Oh, okay.
So because it was quite a tie-centric
contrast.
Yeah, it was quite a tie-centric story, so she used quite a basic tie.
Yeah.
The next one is actually on the dummy.
Of course.
This is the Pompadour tie, or the Christiane Lacroix. This is probably David's most iconic tie, I'd argue.
Yes.
I think it's probably the most remembered from the 10th Doctor.
So this is Girl in the Fireplace, Love and Monsters, and
Blink.
End of Time, and Blink.
For the screen.
Oh, yeah, okay. For his little inserts.
And when he has the time-wimey detector. And he's like, can download comics from the future and boils an egg at 50 paces. You won't like it when they blow.
Yeah.
Or whatever he says.
Yes. It's kind of like a swirly
effect
blue
to it.
pattern, isn't it?
They only had one of these, unfortunately.
Yes.
So basically, they were really protective about this tie, so it was hardly used, but it was Louise and David's favourite, I believe, hence why this is with the End of Time regeneration.
Yeah, so it appears, it's the one that Matt Smith wears
it's a replicated one. So they made it out of brown silk, and then this pattern, Matt's pattern's actually bolder, because on top of the brown silk, what they've done is they've weaved, like hand sewn, the shapes of the swirling, and sections on the silk, they painted them red. Matt does wear it at the end of Time, you know, when he's in the TARDIS, but that's about it.
Right,
but moving on to the next one, this is the Idiot's Lantern tie. Another
one, isn't it?
Well, one hit wonder, yeah. It has actually had a second appearance. That actually, if you listen to the Knowing Who podcast, you'll know where that cheeky second appearance from. That's a shameless plug for you, Miles. This tie was originally a Thomas Nash. Basically, it has some like brown swirls. It's quite a bold tie, and I think the reason they picked it was because of quite a bold pattern, because it was set in the 50s. It was meant to look a bit more like American 50s fit theme, obviously with his hair and everything.
Yeah, of course.
And I think for that reason, that's probably why it's only seen once, because it's actually one of the more bolder patterns of the ties. The next one along is the navy and brown polka dot, which is the Impossible Planet tie. This is the only one at present we don't really know what the identity is. So this is a replica from Magnolia, like a few of the others. Basically, from our knowledge, from what I've heard, like this one, the previous, it's supposed to be a Thomas Nash, but that's word of mouth from what I've never seen any evidence to prove it. But apparently someone told Louise that. I might ask her or to send her an email myself one day, because I think you can do that as a fan. You can send
that's the only kind of only blue tie, isn't it? All the other ones are brown as the base colour.
It was worn with that more kayak shirt.
Yes.
And I think it only appears in Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. And I have a feeling the only other appearance is Human Nature and Family of Blood. You know, at both bookends, the start and the end. So when they duck in the TARDIS and she has the flashbacks.
And in the inserts, presumably, where it's not on the screen.
Then the next tie first crops up at the end of Love and Monsters. But this is another one that was fairly worn. This was a Giorgio Armani tie, also famously referred to as the egg tie, the Dalek tie, whatever you'd like to call it. So it's a brown tie with brown dots on it, but with little blue squares in it. And I think when I think of 10th Doctor, this is probably the tie I probably think of most. I don't know what you'd say out of them.
Interesting. I think the one in my head at the moment is the one the figures are based on, just because I've been so engrossed in all that kind of stuff, writing Go Figure. But it's interesting to come across this one as well, because obviously the 3D glasses figures technically should have this tie, shouldn't they? But they don't. So yeah, it's interesting. I suppose that they're quite similar, aren't they? Well, roughly speaking, kind of brown with blue dots on them.
And this tie was used pretty much all the way to the end. I think, off the top of my head, its last appearance would be Planet of the Dead. He wears it with a blue shirt, I believe, because Waters Marzi wears the blue suit, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, and he doesn't wear that in End of Time. So David would recycle a few of these for Series 3, but for the Series 3 finale from Utopia,
of course,
Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords, this one gets introduced. This one is a St. George by Duffer. The knot changes occasionally, rather oddly in Sound of Drums into Last of the Time Lords, probably because he's been wearing it for a year. It has like a very diagonal sort of floral pattern.
Yeah.
And probably the reason it didn't appear is canonically, because he wore it for a year, it probably didn't make sense. You know, because if he had worn it so long, but then again, time gets reverted at the end of the story.
And so that's the one the aged Doctor wears as well, isn't it? Yeah.
With a dark blue shirt. Yeah. And I think actually the aged Doctor figure was based off that one.
Yeah, I believe that's one of the few variants that does actually have like...
But weirdly the tie's black with like a white pattern, isn't it?
Though I'd have to check. I think it's definitely different to this. They kind of they made some sort of effort.
Some sort of effort.
Yeah.
The next one was introduced in Series 4. There were a few in between this, but they're the blue suit ones. But this is the Partners in Crime tie. This was originally a Massimo Dutti tie. And then the following one was one that was actually never worn, but it's a John Rosher. However, it was sold at Boeham's with, I believe, a Hector tie and a Thomas Nash Idiot's Lantern tie, and basically these are identified and 10th Doctor collectors pick them up for the sake of it. And then the final tie is the 50th anniversary tie.
Day of the Doctor.
The Day of the Doctor one. That was actually from Debenhams.
Yeah.
Really cheap tie compared to the other ones made of polyester. It's really nasty. But other than that, I think it's quite a nice lineup of them.
Yeah. There's kind of more variation. I mean, I should say at the start really, but like just in general with the 10th Doctor's ties, you sort of obviously you're aware of the costumes, the brown suit, the blue suit, and different kind of shirts and things. But you know, I don't quite realise how much variation there was in the ties until seeing them laid out here so beautifully and with all the correct knots as well, of course.
Just about.
Just about. Yeah. So that's all the brown suit ties. Shall we click our fingers and go into the blue suits?
Yep.
So the blue suit is now magically in front of us, along with the ties and also the Converses, which can fit on this time. Fewer ties that went with the blue suit, I suppose, because the blue suit was introduced later on in Series 3. So what do we have here? The first tie?
The first tie, however, this is the Sontaran stratagem variant of the costume, where he re-wears the cotton shirt from the Idiot's Lantern with this tie, but this is a different cotton shirt from Reese that he later wears in Sontaran stratagem. So this was a Nina Ricci tie, quite known, well designer for like floral patterns and things, and it's quite a beautiful tie. It's got like a very nice red to it with like a sort of gold weave hidden within it, if you look very carefully. And then it's obviously got the sort of sky blue pattern floral over the top, briefly. And I think this was used as reference for the B&M Sarah Jane figures.
Oh, yes.
I think.
Okay.
Because
the original blue suit figures, they had the wrong tie, right?
So they used the brown suit Hector tie, unfortunately.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, it's overall quite a nice tie. Moving on to the next, this is my personal favourite out of the blue suit ties. This is a Kenzo. It's a navy-based tie with sort of a red floral pattern, and it's quite nice. It first crops up in Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks, and then, like this one, it gets interchanged with the blue suit quite regularly. It then has later appearances, for example, in Time Crash and Silence in the Library.
Lost the Time Lord, I think, as well.
Yeah, Lost the Time Lord.
Where he has goodbye to Martha.
And then Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, it gets worn with a darker shirt. So the darker burgundy shirt. And then moving on, back onto another tie brand that was previously seen with the brown ones, and funnily enough, it's a striped tie, like one of the brown ones, the Massimo Dutti, which they did a brown version for. But this is the blue suit version, which has a slightly more intricate stripe pattern, I'd say. It's a very lovely tie. It's only worn in the Doctor's Daughter, though. However, David did wear it out and about to say I think there's some photos of him in costume in children's hospitals and things.
Okay.
So when he went to go and visit as the Doctor, I think there's some photos knocking around of him in this tie. And then the final one, a bit like the John Rocher tie, this is a fun blue suit edition tie that people quite like to have. So, fun little bit of trivia, when they decided to animate Dreamland, they originally envisioned the 10th Doctor's costume as the brown suit with the Armani tie, with that brown Dalek tie that was on about.
Yes, with squares. Squares on it, of course, yes.
However, they later changed like the model's colours to reflect the blue suit, but they didn't have time to retexture the tie, so the pattern on it, they just left it the same, but changed the colours. I think a red Armani does exist, but I don't think the squares are quite right on it. This red Armani replica was made by Rassilon, who makes some of the highest quality Tennant ties on the market. I'd highly recommend checking his Etsy out. And once again, fewer than the brown, but I think with the brown, due to there being so many, there was ones that only had like one episode appearances compared to these that, bar, say, this one, were fairly regularly interchanged, or at least these two were, you know, and they'd crop up quite a lot, which made them iconic in their own self. So now that you've had a little look, what's your overall opinions on the 10th Doctor costume?
Oh gosh, I mean, well, first of all, between the brown or blue suit, it's so difficult to pick. With the brown suit, I cannot get away from the fact, as I've said, that like the figures are such a different colour. They're not even brown, they're grey, the suits on those. So yeah, it's really weird like actually seeing the brown one in person. And with the blue one, like you've said to me, I'm not sure exactly how well the red pinstripes will be coming out on camera for you guys at home, but and I can see them okay here, but certainly in some photos and things I've seen,
They fade.
Yeah, they're very like you can barely see them, which again that's
I
kind
think
of
especially
surprising.
with the lower budget, you know, Sarah Jane cameras they were using because they were different cameras to the Doctor Who cameras.
Oh yeah.
It looks really blue, you know, on the Sarah Jane adventures when you
In the wedding of Sarah Jane, which I suppose in turn makes sense when they did the figures without the pins and dragons, which people get a fuss against when that happened. But actually, compared to some of the photos of you, wearing that suit, it's like
you can't see them anyway.
You can't really see them anyway. So what's the point?
I think unlike the brown suit, so the brown suit was originally it was a pair of trousers from Gap, and then 6 pairs were butchered to make the jacket, which is why the jacket is so weirdly cut, and but it also has like all the weird details on it. Like I don't know if you've noticed. But on the pockets on the suit, this is my favourite detail. So there's the pocket flap, but the pocket's not under the flap, it's above the flap.
Oh, I never knew. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a really...
So it's kind of just for show, the flap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's for a costuming standpoint, that, because obviously it makes it easier for David to get things in and out of his pockets.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Like, well, I think the stethoscope's quite a regularly used prop, occasionally.
It's in Planet of the Ood, I know that for sure.
Midnight it appears in.
Midnight.
It also weirdly appears in Partners in Crime when he's on the window. Character options released for Doctor's stethoscope.
I once bought like a doll's house once to go with my 10th Doctor figure to like recreate that suit in the scene with the Ood in the snow. Brilliant.
I read that. But less about our thoughts, should we get on to some of the commenters?
Yeah, let's see what people had to say.
So, for those
Instagram.
who follow me on Instagram, I asked you to submit your opinions on the 10th Doctor costume. Now, if Joe can find it, he will read some of them out. Right, so that Raggedy Jedi says, blue over brown.
Okay.
Do you agree or not?
I suppose, because the coat's brown, when you have the blue suit, obviously the red tie, whatever, then there's more colours involved. So that maybe probably with the coat, and maybe brown suit without. I don't know. There are definitely looks that I like with both of them. Yeah.
But you don't quite like lock.
I couldn't say really between them.
I
myself.
think I prefer the
You
blue.
got a preference? Yeah.
I have a preference for the blue,
Yeah.
just because I prefer it with the coat. But that's my
fair.
opinion. And then Sage WXLF22. I actually once preferred the blue suit, but after some time, the brown suit, I've become very attached to it. I can understand that because it's the original. It's the most
it
warm.
kind of bookends the era as well, doesn't it? With,
Bookends the era.
Yeah, first and last stories.
So this is from Charlie Dykes 63. So simple yet so iconic. Perhaps the easiest of all the costumes to recreate. I'd agree. Maybe that and the Capaldi. You know, at least very basic and contemporary. You know, you just need a big brown coat and a suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of affordable options out there compared to some of the other Doctors because David's that iconic. I think a lot of cosplay companies have jumped onto this one.
Are the ties quite affordable, relatively speaking?
So,
Or do they range?
if you want the originals, they're expensive because they're only sold between private collectors.
I see.
However, some of the replicas, Dan's are reasonably priced for what they are. It's a really high quality silk tie for about 50 quid a piece, or for about 60, 70 once you got them posted over. But I think there's some cheaper alternatives like from Mrs. Bowtie that I think do printed ones. That also do printed ones and Matt's bow ties. And actually a Mrs. Bowtie 10th Doctor tie was used, so you know the egg tie, so this one for the brown suit.
Brown one, yes.
A printed version of that was worn in Power of the Doctor by Jodie Whittaker when she has the amalgamation costume.
The different
so it's actually
pieces.
a cheap replica of the Armani tie that Jodie
Okay, so the
Whittaker wore.
replica kind of became official. Yeah. I like it.
Rise of the Cybermen brown suit variant is underrated. This is from Bad Wolf 4.
It's like brown suit, brown shirt.
And the
Brown tie.
Hector tie, so
Yeah.
you know the doll tie.
It's quite brown. Each to their own. Yeah.
But also weirdly, because he does wear them occasionally, in series 2 and 3, David actually wears black Converse with the brown suit.
Oh, right. And are those what he wore with the tuxedo?
Tuxedo, yeah.
Yes.
But they were first seen with the brown suit, so off the top of my head, he wears them in Rise of the Cyberman and
Yeah,
Age
that
of
makes
Steel.
sense.
He also wears them later on in Love and Monsters. He also wears them in Fear Her, you know, with the Henley. And Impossible Planet and Satan Pit, you know, with the kayak shirt.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Maverick Amadeus Wolfgang says, the coat is so good, I may be too short to feel comfortable in the suit and coat, however. I guess if you have really short legs, it is slightly on the problem side, isn't it?
Yes, I can see that.
But to be fair, Steve will wonderfully tailor it down for you to make it fit better. So he will make it according to height. So don't be afraid about getting one. This one is from Jordan Was Found. Good, but incomplete without sunglasses and proper hairstyle. I'm assuming that's referring to Planet of the Dead.
Oh, yes.
Because he sonics his glasses and don't turn into shades. And then I think, does he re-wear them when he's wearing...
Oh, of course, yes. Drum roll.
I don't actually think it was ever seen with this, but hang on, that's wrong. There we go, that's a new variant. You know something, Big Finish are going to be all over that.
Oh, they can't even see the hat. There we go.
But Big Finish are going to be all over that.
I respect that so much, you know. Brilliant.
Do you respect the effort?
Oh my god, absolutely.
I'm assuming this would be Ethan 20. It's iconic, but in terms of costume design, it's completely lazy and lacks uniqueness.
Well, you said it. I mean, no, I wouldn't agree with that.
I think the coat's very unique.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a giant blanket.
Yeah.
Every day I'm surfing. Great username, that. It is, isn't it? It's far from inspired, but it's obviously iconic. I personally prefer the blue suit, though. Blue suit does seem to be winning here. I'm not going to lie.
Well, thank you for your thoughts everyone at home, and yeah, I mean, thanks once again, Joe, for sharing your brilliant costumes with me and with our viewers. Yeah, really nice to see all those ties. Like I say, so much more variation than I ever quite noticed watching those episodes. And it's been very useful, and like I say, doing go figure the text for that and kind of referring back to the ties and working out which ones are accurate on the figures and which ones aren't. So all good fun. But what are your thoughts on the 10th Doctor's costumes and ties, brown suit or blue suit, which camp are you in? Let us know in the comments below, even. And yeah, I guess we'll see you again soon.
But please, guys, get some better usernames, I beg. Love you all.
Yeah.
For now.
more costume videos to come in the future. Who knows what's next? But until then, thank you so much for watching.
And bye for now.
Allons-y.